Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, and instead of seeing the familiar ceiling above your bed, the very first thing you see is a row of towering marble columns glowing in the first light of dawn. Before your feet even touch the floor, servants have already brought steaming bath, garments embroidered with golden thread, and a breakfast prepared from the finest ingredients the Mediterranean has to offer. Beyond the door, dozens of people are already waiting patiently, not to chat, but to ask for a decision that could change the fate of their entire family. A single nod from you could bring honor and prosperity to one person, or send another. It sounds like a fantasy of unimaginable luxury, yet for a select few people in the ancient world, they was simply everyday life. But if you think their lives were nothing more than gold, lavish feasts, and magnificent palaces, then you have only seen the glittering surface. Behind every banquet stood struggles for power. Behind every luxurious garment was a declaration of status, and behind every privilege lurked the constant fear of betrayal, political conspiracy, death, and the brutal labor system that upheld their extravagant way of life. So what was life really like for the wealthy in the ancient world? What truly separated them from everyone else was not merely what they owned, but how they viewed the world, how they exercised power, and what they were willing to sacrifice in order to keep it all. And perhaps that story is far closer to our own lives than you might imagine. If you truly want to understand how a wealthy person lived in the ancient world, do not begin by looking at their treasures. Begin with the first hours after they woke up. For the wealthy, morning was not simply the start of the day. It was the first performance of power. They did not rise, prepare their own food, choose their own clothing, or rush from one obligation to another. Long before they opened their eyes, other people had already begun working around them. Water was warmed, clothing was prepared, messages were arranged, visitors were organized. The household moved before the master did. In ancient Rome, when a senator, nobleman, or wealthy patron awoke, the entire house came alive. Servants moved through corridors, preparing the body, the room, and the public image of a man who ruled the household. Even clothing carried political meaning. A white toga was not merely fabric. It was a visible declaration that its wearer belonged to a privileged class, one expected to speak, judge, command, and influence the life of the city. Soon came one of the most revealing rituals of Roman elite's life, the salutatio. From the early morning, clients, dependents, and men seeking favor gathered outside the entrance. They were not there for friendship in the modern sense. Came to be seen, to show loyalty, and to request help. A recommendation, a small payment, legal support, or a political connection could alter the future of an entire family. The nobleman did not need to say much. His appearance alone mattered. Passing slowly before those who waited, granting a few brief words, recognizing one person and ignoring other. Each gesture reinforced the structure of Roman society. In that world, power was measured not only by what you owned, it was measured by how many people were willing to wait for you. In ancient Egypt, elite mornings carried a more sacred rhythm. Wealthy families often began the day through purification, offerings, and gestures of devotion to the god. High status was not only a social position, it was supposed to reflect harmony with divine order. To live richly was also to appear aligned with Ma'at, the cosmic balance that held the world together. Further east, in Babylon, wealthy officials and merchants often used the early hours for meetings, reports, and negotiations before the city grew crowded and loud. These conversations were not merely practical exchanges, they renewed the relationships that made influence possible. In a world without phones, digital records, or instant messages, power depended on memory, presence, loyalty, and reputation. At first glance, these rituals may look like ordinary habits, but anthropologically, they served a deeper purpose. They made hierarchy visible. When people repeatedly saw one individual being served, approached, obeyed, and placed above others, the human mind registered that person as powerful. Status was not only believed, it was performed again and again until it felt natural. And if the morning was the first stage of power, the home was its permanent theater. Imagine stepping through the heavy wooden doors of a Roman mansion. Instead of a private living room, you enter a carefully designed world of space, light, and symbolic authority. An open courtyard lies ahead. A reflecting pool catches the sky. Marble columns rise around you. Mosaic floors shimmer underfoot. Statues, painted walls, and rare materials guide your eyes deeper into the house. Nothing here exists by accident. The elite Roman domus was not only a place to sleep. It was where politics happened, favors were granted, alliances were formed, and reputation was displayed. Visitors were meant to feel the owner's importance before he even spoke. The deeper one moved into the house, the more impressive the rooms became. Space itself became a language. High ceilings, polished stone, imported objects, and the quiet presence of all servants communicated the same message. This person commands resources beyond ordinary life. Anthropologists sometimes describe this as the architecture of status. Human beings do not judge power only through speech. We feel it through scale, distance, material, silence, and access. Thousands of years before skyscrapers and luxury penthouse, the ancient elite already understood that space could shape emotion. In ancient Greece, wealthy houses could appear more modest from the outside, but the inner courtyard remained important. It was a setting for conversation, hospitality, drinking parties, and philosophical exchange. Here, status was tied not only to wealth, but to education, culture, and the ability to participate in public life. In Babylon, the homes and palaces of the powerful often used gardens, shade, glazed brick, and the water systems to create comfort in a hot, demanding environment. Water and greenery were more than beauty. They were signs of control over scarce resources. Most ordinary people would never live in such spaces. That scarcity made the mansion itself a message. It told every visitor that the owner could command craftsmen, materials, laborers, and time on a scale most people could barely imagine. But the home was only the backdrop. The clearest performance of luxury began with the banquet hall open. As the sun slowly disappeared behind the rooftops, the house of the elite entered the most important moment of the day. If the morning established power, the evening displayed it. Imagine entering a Roman banquet hall. Oil lamps cast warm light across polished marble and colorful mosaics. The aroma of roasted meat, wine, imported spices, and fresh bread fills the air. Servants move silently between reclining guests, represent each course with almost theatrical precision. Yet, these banquets were never simply about eating. They were carefully staged demonstrations of wealth. In Roman society, a successful host proved his prestige by offering foods that few others could obtain. Fish transported across great distances, aged wines, exotic spices, and expensive ingredients all carry the same message. I possess resources beyond the reach of ordinary people. One of the best-known collections of Roman recipes, commonly known as Apicius, reveals its taste for culinary extravagance. Its dishes combined honey, herbs, black pepper, fermented fish sauce, and imported ingredients into elaborate recipes designed not merely to satisfy hunger, but to impress guests with the host's access to the vast commercial networks of the Mediterranean. Roman writers frequently mocked such excess. In the Satyricon, the fictional character Trimalchio stages banquets so extravagant that every course becomes a spectacle. Though exaggerated for satire, the story reflects an important social reality. For many members of the Roman elite, astonishing guests mattered almost as much as feeding them. Ancient Greece offered a different vision of elite dining. After the meal came the symposium, a gathering devoted to wine, music, poetry, and philosophical debate. Conversations about justice, politics, virtue, and human nature often continued deep into the night. Here, status depended not only on wealth but on education. A rich man who could not contribute thoughtfully to discussion remained an outsider among true aristocrats. In ancient Egypt, elite feasts also reflected social hierarchy. Bread, wine, beef, duck, goose, honey, and fruit appeared regularly on aristocratic tables, while musicians entertained guests and servants attended every. Tomb paintings preserve these scenes, emphasizing that banquets were ceremonies of status as much as celebrations of abundance. Evolutionary psychology helps explain why these gatherings matter so much. For hundreds of thousands of years, sharing food strengthened trust, created alliance, and reinforced cooperation. As civilizations became larger and more complex, that ancient instinct remained. Lavish feasts became investment in political loyalty, social reputation, and long-term influence. Food, in another word, became another form of power. But even the grandest banquet eventually came to an end. As the fine cups were emptied and the music faded, the wealthy turned toward another stage where status could be displayed before even larger audience. Their leisure. Imagine sitting in the place of honor inside a Roman amphitheater. Tens of thousands of spectators erupt into cheers as gladiators enter the arena. Wild animals brought from distant provinces appear before the crowd. Every contest demonstrates not only courage or violence, but the immense reach of the Roman Empire itself. To modern eyes, these spectacles seemed brutal. To many Romans, however, they symbolized civilization's triumph over both nature and humanity. Even the seating arrangement reflected social order. The emperor, senators, and aristocrats occupied the finest positions, while everyone else watched from farther away. Power was literally built into the architecture. One glance at where a person sat revealed where they stood in society. Ancient Greece celebrated different forms of public entertainment. Open-air theaters became centers of cultural life, where tragedies and comedies explored fate, morality, and the relationship between humans and the gods. Wealthy citizens gained prestige by supporting playwrights, musicians, and performers. Patronage of the arts became another visible expression of state. Music, poetry, storytelling, and dance also filled aristocratic banquets. The wealthier the host, the greater the ability to invite celebrated performers and create evenings that guests could remember for years. Chariot racing offered another powerful avenue for elite competition. Across Rome and the Greek world, enormous crowds gathered to watch races that inspired loyalty comparable to modern professional sports. Aristocratic families invested heavily in horses, racing teams, and skilled charioteers because victory brought not only applause, but lasting political influence and family prestige. Cognitive psychology offers a simple explanation for why these spectacles proved so effective. Human beings are naturally drawn toward rare, emotionally intense experiences. Those capable of creating unforgettable public events attract admiration, attention, and influence. By controlling society's greatest spectacle, the wealthy shaped not only how people spent the leisure, but how future generations remembered them. The elite understood a timeless principle. Power must not only exist, it must be seen. Yet behind every magnificent performance stood another daily ritual that was equally important, the care of the body itself. If the home projected power and the banquet displayed it, the body became something the wealthy carried with them wherever they went. In the ancient world, the appearance was never simply about beauty. It was a declaration of status. Imagine entering one of the great public baths of ancient Rome. Steam drips between marble columns as conversations about politics, commerce, and military affairs echo through the halls. Men did not gather here simply to wash. The baths were places to build relationships, negotiate alliances, and strengthen social influence. To spend hours moving through hot rooms, warm pools, and cold plunges signaled something beyond comfort. It demonstrated possession of one of history's rarest luxuries: time. After bathing, fragrant olive oil was rubbed into the skin before being removed with a curved bronze scraper known as the strigil. This daily ritual reflected both hygiene and refinement, privileges unavailable to most laborers whose lives were consumed by physical work. In ancient Egypt, aristocrats cultivated an equally distinctive appearance. Perfumed oils, scented creams, mineral cosmetics, and dark eye paint served practical purposes in the harsh climate, but they also became unmistakable symbols of wealth. The rare ingredients used to produce these cosmetics often traveled long distances, making personal care another visible display of privilege. Legends even claim that Egypt's famous queens bathed in donkey's milk to preserve youthful skin. Whether entirely true or not, such stories reveal an important ideal shared across many ancient civilizations. The elite constantly search for extraordinary ways to preserve youth, elegance, and distinction. clothing communicated the same message. A Roman toga was never just clothing. Its fabric, brightness, and careful arrangement immediately revealed the wearer's social rank. Across the ancient world, dress functioned as a public language. Before anyone spoke, appearance had already announced where they belonged within society. Modern psychologists describe this instinct as status signaling. Human beings naturally judge one another through appearance, posture, grooming, and visible symbols of success. Although thousands of years have passed, the underlying psychology has changed remarkably little. The wealthy understood a simple truth. Power must first be seen before it can be obeyed. Yet no perfume, elegant garment, or carefully maintained appearance could conceal one thing: fear. Until now, the lives of the ancient elite may have seemed almost inviolable. Magnificent homes, lavish feasts, servants, political influence, extraordinary luxury. But the higher someone climbed, the more they stood to lose. A farmer worried about the harvest, an artisan worried about finding customers, an aristocracy worried about losing everything. In ancient Rome, wealth rarely guaranteed security. Powerful families constantly navigated rivalries, shifting alliance, public accusations, and political intrigue. One failed alliance, one unpopular decision, or one powerful enemy could destroy fortunes that had taken generations to build. Roman history repeatedly tells the stories of influential senators and noblemen who rose to extraordinary heights before being exiled, stripped of their property, or executed during political upheaval. Wealth did not simply attract admiration, it attracted enemies. In ancient Egypt and the kingdoms of the survival depended upon remaining in the favor of the royal court. Position was never permanent. Prestige rose and fell with changing rulers, court politics, and the personal loyalty to the throne. Modern psychology helps explain this constant anxiety. People generally fear losing what they already possess more intensely than they enjoy acquiring something new. As wealth and status increase, so does the emotional cost of losing. Perhaps this explains why so many people of the ancient elite devoted enormous effort to preserving their legacy. They built monumental tombs, commissioned statues. Raised temples, inscribed their names into stone. Not simply because they wished to be remembered, but because every monument became a small act of resistance against the only force no empire could conquer, time itself. From a philosophical perspective, this reveals one of the history's deepest paradoxes. Money could buy land, palaces, influence, even political power, but it could never purchase immortality. And beneath every marble palace, every magnificent banquet, and every display of privilege stood another reality that was far less visible. None of it existed without the labor of countless other people. Only by looking at those unseen lives can we understand the true cost of ancient luxury. If we admire only the palaces, the banquets, and the magnificent gardens, it is easy to forget one essential truth. None of them existed on their own. Behind every luxurious life stood an enormous labor force. Across much of the ancient world, especially in Rome, slavery formed a central part of the economy. Enslaved people cultivated fields, worked in mines, produced goods in workshops, and maintained the vast households of the elite. They cooked meals, cleaned rooms, raised children, managed estates, kept financial records, and in many cases, educated the children of wealthy families. The leisure enjoyed by the aristocracy did not emerge from wealth alone. It was made possible by the labor of countless others. Ancient society, however, was more complex than it is often imagined. Not every enslaved person performed manual labor. Some were highly educated physicians, accountants, secretaries, architects, or tutors whose knowledge made them indispensable to powerful households. Under certain circumstances, a number of them could accumulate personal property, receive wages, and eventually earn their freedom. One of history's most remarkable examples is the philosopher Epictetus. Born into slavery, he later gained his freedom and became one of the greatest Stoic thinkers of the ancient world. His life remains a powerful reminder that wisdom and character are not determined by birth or social rank. From an anthropological perspective, this reveals a pattern repeated throughout human history. Whenever one group gains the freedom to devote more time to governing, learning, creating, or philosophical reflection, another group often performs much of the labor that makes that freedom possible. This pattern appeared in Rome, but it also emerged in different forms across many civilizations. Remembering this broader picture changes the way we view ancient luxury. Behind every marble column stood the mason who shaped it. Behind every carefully prepared banquet stood cooks, servants, farmers, merchants, and laborers whose names history almost never recorded. Behind every celebrated aristocrat stood thousands of invisible lives. Perhaps that is what the greatest monuments of the ancient world tell only part of the story. The other half belongs to the ordinary people whose work allowed extraordinary wealth to exist. And once every glittering layer has been peeled away, one final question remains. If wealth was not ultimately defined by gold, or jewels, or magnificent estates, then what was the greatest treasure the wealthy actually possessed? Surprisingly, it was something invisible: time. For most people in the ancient world, nearly every waking hour was devoted to survival. They farmed, hunted, carried water, tended animals, repaired homes, gathered fuel, and struggled through one season after another. Their days were consumed by necessity. The wealthy lived differently because others performed much of that labor. They possessed something far more valuable than material possessions. They possessed control over their own time. They could study philosophy, participate in politics, read literature, commission works of art, travel, hunt, host elaborate banquets, or simply spend hours thinking about the future. Anthropologically, this may be the deepest form of wealth humanity has ever created. When other people perform the work required for survival, what is truly accumulated is not only money or property. It is freedom over one's own life. Perhaps this is why, even after thousands of years, our definition of success has changed less than we imagine. We no longer live in the Roman villas or Egyptian palaces. Yet, when we picture someone who is genuinely wealthy, we often imagine a person who controls their own schedule, chooses how to spend each day, and enjoys the freedom that comes from owning their time. In that sense, the invisible thread connecting us to the wealthy of the ancient world has never truly disappeared. And that realization allows us to look back across this entire journey with a different understanding of what wealth has always meant. Looking back across everything we have explored, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The greatest surprise is not how much gold, land, or luxury the wealthy of the ancient world possessed. It is the price they paid to preserve it. Behind every marble palace stood relentless political competition. Behind every magnificent banquet lay fragile alliances that could collapse overnight. Behind every elegant appearance lived the constant fear of losing influence, reputation, or eventually life itself. And beneath every privilege stood the labor of countless ordinary people whose names history has almost entirely forgotten. Perhaps this is why wealth has never simply meant owning more than everyone else. It has always been a complicated combination of power, responsibility, fear, and the choices each individual must make. Over thousands of years, the world has changed beyond recognition. We no longer live in Roman villas. We no longer host banquets like the nobles of Egypt or Babylon. Yet our longing for status, recognition, and the freedom to decide how we spend our own time seems never to have disappeared. Perhaps modern humanity is not so different from the wealthy people of the ancient world after all. We simply have more modern bathrooms. If you had to live tens of thousands of years ago, before cities, before firearms, before sturdy walls, when everything echoed with the roars of predators lurking beyond the darkness, which strategy do you think you would choose to survive? Share your answer in the comments below. I'd genuinely love to know whether, in that world, would you place your trust in courage, intelligence, or the strength of an entire community to face the wilderness? If you enjoy exploring stories about history, anthropology, and the extraordinary journey of human evolution, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you will never miss our upcoming videos. Every week, we'll travel back through time together to discover how our ancestors overcame challenges that once seemed impossible, and explore why the choices they made continue to shape our lives today. And if you're ready to continue this journey, be sure to watch the next video on the channel. How ancient humans defended themselves from predators. There, you'll discover how our ancestors confronted enormous predators using only primitive tools, extraordinary cooperation, and intelligence that forever transformed humanity's place in the natural world. It is the story of how a creature that once seemed fragile gradually became the greatest survival on Earth.